If you're between 70 and 80, I want to ask you a few honest questions. Not about your cholesterol, not about your blood pressure, about your everyday life. Can you still get up off the floor without needing to grab a chair or a nearby table? When you climb a flight of stairs, do you do it confidently, or do you automatically reach for the railing? And when you carry groceries into the house, can you make it in one trip, or do you need to stop and rest halfway? If you can do some of these things, you are aging much better than most others I know. Because most people don't realize that losing these abilities often begins years before a loss of independence becomes obvious. It doesn't happen overnight, it happens gradually. One small adjustment at a time, one avoided the staircase, an activity you stop doing because it's become more difficult than it used to be. After more than 30 years working with older adults, I've learned that a handful of simple abilities can tell us more about how well someone is aging than many of the numbers we focus on at a doctor's office. In fact, one of the abilities we'll discuss today predicts future falls better than age itself. And another has surprisingly little to do with physical strength. That's why in today's video, I'm going to walk you through 5 abilities that reveal far more about healthy aging than most people realize. If you can still do them, you're preserving capabilities that many people lose much earlier than they expected. And if 1 or 2 of them have become difficult, don't worry. Because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what they mean and what you can start doing today to protect them. Let's begin with the first one because it's also the ability most people stop testing long before they lose it. Test 1. Stand up from the floor without support. Let me ask you to picture something. You're playing with a grandchild on the living room floor, or you've bent down to pick up something you dropped and now you need to get back up. No couch arm nearby, no table to brace against. Just you, the floor, and gravity. How does your body answer that question? This is not a small thing, my friend. There is a well-known clinical test. Researchers in Brazil studied thousands of adults on exactly this movement, going from sitting on the floor to standing with no hands, no support. What they found should concern you, but it should also give you hope. The people who could do it without using a single hand for support were significantly more likely to still be alive 10 years later than the people who needed both hands and a knee just to manage it. Not because the floor is dangerous, because that movement uses nearly every major muscle group, your balance system, your core, your joints, all at once. It is one of the purest tests of how well your whole body is still working together. Here's the part most people never hear from their doctor. This decline does not announce itself. There is no single morning where you wake up and suddenly cannot do it. It erodes in inches. You start needing one hand. Then a piece of furniture, then you simply stop getting on the floor at all and you tell yourself it's because you don't need to. That is the quiet trap. Avoidance feels like a choice. It is actually the disappearance of a capability dressed up as a preference. Stop for a moment and really think about that. How many things have you quietly stopped doing, not because you decided to, but because some part of you knew you couldn't anymore and it was easier not to look at it directly? This is the opposite of what most people assume about aging. Most people think the muscles just go on their own timeline like a candle burning down and there's nothing to be done but watch. The truth is very different. Strength loss after 70 is driven far more by disuse than by age itself. Your body adapts to what you ask of it. Ask it less and it quietly agrees to do less. If you can still get yourself up off the floor, even slowly, even taking your time, you are telling your body something important every single time you do it. You are telling it, I still need this. Keep it. And if you can't right now, that is not a sentence. It is information. There is a way back, and I'll come back to exactly how near the end, because it ties directly into something most people miss about staying capable after 70. For now, keep that thought in your pocket. Because the next thing I want to talk about looks completely different on the surface, carrying your own groceries, but it is testing something surprisingly similar. And the reason it matters may not be what you expect. Test 2. Carry groceries without difficulty. Think about the last time you carried groceries from the car. Not a single light bag. The real load: milk, a few cans, maybe a case of water bottles your daughter insisted on buying in bulk. Did you make it in one trip, or did you find yourself making 2, 3 trips, telling yourself it was just easier that way? Here is something most people have never heard, and it is one of the most studied measurements in all of aging research. Grip strength, simply how hard you can squeeze with your hand, has been tracked across hundreds of thousands of people in research spanning multiple continents. It turns out to be one of the strongest single predictors doctors have for how someone will fare in the next decade of their life, stronger even than some blood test results. A weak grip does not just mean weak hands. It is a window into your whole muscular system, including the muscles around your heart and lungs that you cannot see working. So when you struggle to carry groceries, you are not failing at a chore. Your body is reporting something to you, the same way pain reports an injury. Here is the part that surprised me most after 30 years of practicing this. The danger is not the weight itself. Most people in their 70s and 80s who get hurt carrying groceries do not get hurt because the bag was too heavy. They get hurt because their grip gave out without warning mid-stride, and the sudden shift in balance is what caused the fall. It is not the load, it is the loss of control over the load. That distinction matters because it tells you exactly what to train, not raw strength alone, but the kind of strength that holds steady under an unpredictable pull. This is the opposite of what most people believe about staying safe as they age. The instinct is to carry less, to ask for help more, to shrink the task down until it feels manageable. I understand that instinct completely. But shrinking the task does not rebuild the capacity. It only delays the moment you discover it's gone. The muscles that hold a grocery bag steady are the same muscles that catch you when you trip on an uneven sidewalk. You are not just training for groceries, you are training for the moment that actually matters, the one you don't get to plan for. If you can still carry your groceries in without setting them down to rest in 1 or 2 reasonable trips, that grip and that core stability are still doing their job. That is not a small thing. That is your body protecting you in ways you don't usually get to see. Now, here is something to keep in mind as we move forward, because the next thing I want to talk about, stairs, is going to bring this same idea into a place where the stakes are even higher. Where a loss of control does not mean a dropped grocery bag, it means something far more serious. And the reason most seniors fear stairs is not actually the reason they should fear them. Test 3. Walk upstairs without support. Most people think the danger of stairs is going up. It isn't. I have treated this for 30 years and I can tell you directly, the real danger is almost always coming down. Going up uses raw strength. Coming down requires something far more fragile, control. Your muscles have to lower your body weight gradually, with precision, while your eyes and your inner ear coordinate to tell your brain exactly where the next step is. That is 3 systems working in perfect timing. Strength, vision, and balance all at once, all under time pressure. This is the shock most people never hear. Falls are not random bad luck. They are not something that simply happens to unlucky people. According to data tracked for decades by health agencies, roughly 1 in 4 adults over 65 falls each year, and stairs are one of the most common settings for the falls that cause real injury. Not because stairs are inherently more dangerous than flat ground, because stairs expose any weakness in that 3-part system the moment it appears, with almost no margin for error. So if you can still walk down a flight of stairs without gripping the rail like your life depends on it, you are telling me something very specific. Your legs, your eyes, and your inner ear are still talking to each other correctly. That is not a small accomplishment at 70 or 75. That is 3 separate systems in your body still doing their job in concert every single time you take a step down. Here is what almost nobody tells you, and it is the real reason stairs become frightening. It is rarely the legs that go first. It is usually the eyes adjusting to changing light, or the inner ear losing its fine-tuned sense of where level is. People blame their knees. The knees are often the last thing to fail. By the time the knees feel it, the balance system has already been quietly struggling for a year or 2. I need to pause here because this next part matters. If you have started using the railing more than you used to, not out of habit, but because something feels less certain underfoot, please do not dismiss that as simply getting older. That feeling is data. It is worth mentioning to your doctor specifically, by name, the next time you see one. Say the words, "I've noticed I need the railing more than I used to. Doctors here, I'm just getting old 100 times a day," and often let it pass. They rarely let that specific sentence pass. Now here is something curious. So far, everything we've talked about, the floor, the groceries, the stairs, has been physical. muscles, balance, grip, but I am going to tell you something that surprised me more than any of it after 3 decades of practicing medicine. The hardest part of aging is not physical at all. And the fourth thing on this list has almost nothing to do with your body, and almost everything to do with whether you will still feel like yourself 10 years from now. Test 4. Maintain an active social life. Here is something a researcher at Brigham Young University spent years studying, and her findings are still talked about in medical circles today. She analyzed data from over 300,000 people and found that chronic loneliness carries a health risk comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Let that sit with you for a moment. Not stress, not poor diet. Loneliness itself, sitting in a chair, doing nothing but being alone too often, carries that kind of weight on a human body. You wake up one morning and realize nobody has called in 3 days, not because they stopped loving you. Your children are building careers, raising their own children, drowning in the particular busyness of midlife. Your old friends are dealing with their own health, their own grandchildren, their own shrinking worlds. Nobody decided to leave you behind. Life simply got loud for everyone else and quiet for you. This is the part most people get completely backward. Retirement is sold to us as the reward, the finish line, the years of rest we earned. But here is the truth nobody puts on a retirement card. For many people, retirement increases stress and isolation instead of relieving it. The job that exhausted you was also, without you realizing it, your daily source of conversation, purpose, and unplanned human contact. Take that away suddenly with nothing built to replace it, and the silence can feel less like peace and more like disappearance. Stop and think honestly. When was the last time you had a real conversation, not a text, not a quick call to confirm a doctor's appointment, but a conversation where someone asked how you were actually doing and waited for the real answer? If you can still answer that question with recently, you are doing something most people your age have quietly let slip away. An active social life after 70 is not a luxury. It functions almost like a vital sign. It is one of the strongest predictors researchers have found for whether someone keeps their independence, keeps their mental sharpness, and yes, keeps living longer. And here is the part I find most important of everything I will tell you today. Isolation does not arrive all at once like a storm. It arrives like a slow tide, one missed call at a time, one skipped gathering at a time, until one day the distance feels too large to cross and you simply stop trying. That is the moment to interrupt, not the moment to accept. Keep that thought because it connects directly to the fifth and final trait, and the connection between them surprised me the first time I noticed it in my own patients. The people who stayed the most socially connected were almost always the same people doing one particular thing with their minds. And that brings us to something most seniors believe is just a hobby, but is actually one of the most protective habits a person can build after 70. Test 5. Learn something new. There is a group of people researchers at Northwestern University call superagers. These are people in their 80s and even 90s whose memory performs like someone decades younger. Brain scans show their brains have not shrunk the way we'd expect for their age. For years, scientists assumed genetics explained it. Genetics plays a role, yes, but one of the most consistent patterns researchers found among superagers was this. They never stopped putting their brain in situations where it had to struggle to learn something genuinely new. Not crossword puzzles, I want to be honest with you here because this is something competing channels rarely say out loud. Crossword puzzles and Sudoku, the things we're told to do for brain health, mostly exercise skills you already have. They feel hard in the moment, but they are not building new pathways. Real cognitive protection comes from things that feel awkward and unfamiliar, learning a language, picking up an instrument, figuring out a new piece of technology, taking up a skill you have never attempted in your life. Here is why this connects to everything I told you about staying social. The people who keep learning new things are almost always the same people who keep showing up to new rooms, a class, a group, a workshop. Learning rarely happens in isolation. It pulls you back into contact with other people, often people younger than your usual circle, which exposes you to entirely different conversations and energy. The habit of learning and the habit of connection feed each other. That is the link I noticed in my own patients, the one I promised to tell you about. If you are still willing to feel like a beginner at something, clumsy, slow, occasionally embarrassed, at 70 or 80, you are doing something most people quietly stop doing in their 50s out of pride. And that willingness may be protecting your brain more than any supplement or puzzle book on the market. Now let's bring all 5 of these together because there's something important about how they connect and what to actually do if you read this list and felt your stomach drop a little. So let's bring this together, my friend. Standing from the floor, carrying your groceries, walking down the stairs steady, staying connected to people who matter, staying willing to learn something new, 5 things, not impossible things. Things you have already done thousands of times in your life without thinking twice about them. If you read through this list and felt proud, hold on to that. You have earned it, and most people your age have not kept what you've kept. And if you read through this list and felt that small drop in your stomach, recognizing 1, 2, maybe 3 things that have quietly slipped away, I want you to hear this clearly. That feeling is not a verdict. It is not too late, and it is not your fault. I promised you earlier I would come back to this, and here it is. The body and mind respond to small, consistent signals far more than people realize, even at 75, even at 80. Practicing getting up from a chair without your hands 10 times a day, walking to the mailbox instead of driving, calling one person today instead of waiting for them to call you. Sitting in on one class, one church group, one library talk you've been meaning to attend. None of these feel dramatic. None of them need to be. Capability rebuilds the same quiet way it disappears in inches through repetition, not through one heroic effort. I have watched patients in their late 70s regain things they thought were gone for good, simply by deciding the story wasn't finished yet. I have also watched people in their early 60s lose ground faster than expected, simply because they assumed they had time to spare. Age is not really the variable here, attention is.